Started in here real quickly. Online with me is a very busy man, especially for a day like today. Governor Kasich running here in, running for the Republican primary presidential race. Oh, that's still a little loud. That'll end soon, Governor. I appreciate you calling in on such a busy day, Governor Kasich. Thank you.
Glad to do it.
Well,
Absolutely.
real quickly, I know we're time limited. Yours is the only remaining candidacy that has really successfully stayed above the fray, take the high road with the positive messaging. But so far, your message has been drowned out by a lot of the insults and negative when it comes to media coverage is where I'm going at. Now that you have your mic to yourself, what is the message you want to get out to the people of Michigan who are going to be voting today and in the future regarding your candidacy, your vision for the country, and what's most important short and long-term issues we face in your estimation?
Well, look, the fact is that we got to fix the country. We know that there is tremendous insecurity in terms of jobs and wages, and we also know we have a real problem in terms of our kids getting an education and not being able to get the kind of jobs that they always thought that they could get. And I do know how to deal with these things. I've dealt with them, in Washington when we balanced the budget. We had an explosion of economic prosperity, and people were secure in their jobs. And at the same time, I've done it in Ohio with a significant turnaround there. And my view is that you've got to pick somebody that really knows what they're doing to be president of the United States. I mean, I don't know how else we would pick somebody if we weren't paying attention to their record and their vision. And I also have that foreign policy experience as well, the ability to, where I served on the Armed Services Committee for a long, long, long time. So, look, I mean, my only message is, and I'm going to be positive, once you reward the positive guy who's got the experience.
And your vision for this country, what would you say is the most important short-term and long-term issues facing us today? If President Kasich, first day in office, has to sit there and decide, obviously, on an agenda and prioritize it, how would you?
Well, I already know what the agenda is and what I would do in the first 100 days. But there's only three things that matter. The first one is jobs. The second one is jobs, and guess what the third one is?
Right.
Jobs.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. If you don't have economic growth, which we have not had in this country for a significant period of time, the kind of growth that we need post-recession, then everybody struggles. You struggle with the strength of your work. You wonder if you're ever going to get a pay raise. These are the things that need to be corrected, because once you have economic strength, then you can turn your attention to so many of the other issues that need to be paid attention to. So, and to get that done, you need common sense regulations, lower taxes, and a path to a balanced budget. Exactly what I did in Washington and exactly what I've done in Ohio.
Well, I certainly agree with you. I've been talking forever that we need a good economy. We need to make money before any of these other things people want can even be addressed. But also national security, where do you stand on that?
Well, we're going to have to rebuild the military. It's really run down, and I got a program to spend about $100 billion on it. But at the same time you do it, when you have an organization that has 800,000 people in the Department of Defense providing or carrying out bureaucratic functions, that doesn't work very well. The building needs significant reform, and I think we have a Congress, John McCain, Mac Thornberry in the House, who are committed to significant Pentagon reform so that the money we spend actually goes to the men and women on the front line and not to red tape, defense contractors, or any of these other things.
Well, at this point in the campaign, it looks like there may not be a direct pathway to the nomination for any of you four who are left as far as getting the required amount of delegates. So if it comes to a broker convention, Governor Kasich, what effect do you think it will have on the party? Realistically, in this political climate, can a compromise candidate unite the party enough to beat possibly Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
Well, no, I think that the answer is that if you go to a convention and nobody has enough votes or enough delegates to win, then obviously you get into a situation where the delegates have to decide who should get the nomination. And then I think at that point they start looking seriously at the qualifications and the records of people who want to be commander-in-chief. Now, you want to be in a position of where that convention is viewed favorably, that nobody feels as though they were totally ripped off and that some backroom deal deprived them of what they thought their rights were. And I think you can manage that. I was there when Reagan challenged Gerald Ford, and Ford won. Party was fine. Everybody felt it was a fair system. And I think that's what we need to try to achieve if we end up in a multi-ballot convention. Now, some people, want to make a name for themselves or get good ratings, will rant and rave about that. But I don't know how else you would do it. If you don't have enough delegates, how do you get picked? And you run around saying, well, I have to get picked. I had more than everybody else. Well, more than anybody else doesn't mean you got it. There's a certain rule. It's like, being in school and that the 90 is an A, and you get to 88 and everybody else is below you. We don't grade on the curve when it comes to conventions or, who should be the nominee. Just because I'm higher than everybody else doesn't mean I get an A.
Right, and that's what a lot of my callers and listeners who have who lean right or are right ideology are concerned about. If it goes to a brokered convention, that will, if it is you, Governor Kasich, who is picked as the nominee, is that's going to so fracture the party that you're going in already behind the eight ball into the general election?
Well, how else would you do it? What would you say? I mean, come on. What else would you?
What would you say?
Do?
What would you say to them, Governor Kasich? Who people say that he should not have gotten it because so and so or so and so or so and so had more, what have you? I feel ripped off. What would you say to them to bring him back into the fold?
Well, you want to have a robust agenda that can appeal to the broad base of the party. But I mean, again, if I have an 87 on my test, how do I get an A with that? I mean, what are we changing the rules? I mean, if I get a 90, I get an A. If I get an 87, I get a B. I mean, how else would you do it? What would you say? Oh, well, I'm really mad because I didn't get an A, even though I had an 87. I think this is the best way to describe it on this radio show. I hadn't thought about exactly how to say it.
Right.
The rules are the rules, and we have to live by the rules. I mean, you can't just say, all right, because you're upset, we're going to do something differently. And frankly, look, at the end of it all, the delegates will, if we get to this, and I think we're likely to get there, the delegates are going to choose somebody who has a record of job growth, experience, foreign policy experience. I mean, what else would you try to say? He who yells the loudest ought to be the nominee? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Look, people will settle down. It'll be fine. And it's just where we are right now. It's really, I think it's exciting rather than it is, a reason for people to be upset. Our kids may actually begin to learn about how we pick a president in America. Wouldn't that be great?
I tell you, I have teenagers who are involved in asking me questions now because from that excitement, whether it's positive, negative coverage, it is getting people involved. So from that perspective, you're right. Well, I appreciate you coming on this morning on the Live with Renk show, Governor Kasich.
Well, I enjoyed it. Thank you. And you guys have a fun day, and we'll see what happens tonight when the polls close.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.